Righto, 12 o'clock on a Friday night. Big day of work tomorrow and Sunday, out on site. But I've really been looking for an excuse to use my mate Mark Box's three-footed monster, and I actually just needed something to hold in my hand to do this in a more YouTube-friendly format than how you normally just hold your phone. And that's all I ever do these on, just an iPhone. Yes, I am that tragic. Anyway, this video is actually asked about faith. This introduction should have been done a bit earlier. This is actually 3 steps down the road. But what we've actually got here is a American 1972 GT 750 Ducati. A cool bloke called Anthony owns it. He's an Australian that lives and works in LA, and he's a pretty cool dude. Works in the music industry as far as I know. And through some contacts and a cool bloke called Graham, they asked me to have a look at it. Now, obviously you don't start out to buy a bike in the condition that this was in, but it was a Craigslist bike in America. He got it for a price that made it attractive. The only problem was that sometime in the distant past, and it's very difficult to tell as I walk around it. I've got the jig around it now. That's why I should have started earlier. And if I choose to, I could cut in some stuff now and show it, but you'll get the idea as I go along. Okay. So this bike had a major accident, and then someone had done a repair in America, and Anthony had sent it back to LA where he's living. And COVID hit and he brought it back to Australia. His father raced them. He just loves the Ducatis. He's always wanted one of these earlier bevels of this type in the few that he's got. And this is a way that he could get in. Really, there was a big problem. It had been hit from where we're looking now. So if you're actually looking at the angle there now, that's where the collisions happened. And it pushed the head backwards. So on the table here, that is a bar that I have through the headstock. I've got some jigs that I've made up over the years. So this is the latest incarnation of it. Oh, can I get in there to see it? It's an aluminium piece drilled and tapped to M24, and it's the shape. I actually leave the cup bearings in position. I like the extra strength that they give in through the headstock, but I've then got a piece of high tensile M24 with a 16mm hole up the center of it. And so I do that up on top and bottom, and I encase the headstock, and then I use a bar, my 16mm sight bar that can move as well. So as you can see, that slides up through the reamed hole down the center. Okay, so that's how I can, and if I bring this back to the table, you can see there's a center line down the table. A bit hard to see, and that's why overhead, I've shown it a few times, but that's actually a 25mm bit of rail. Oh, okay, I'll show off now. I'll show off. I'll put them down on the ground a bit. Okay. So this is a piece of 25mm precision ground bar. It's just bar stock that you buy from any steel supplier, but it's ground to a high tolerance and it's very parallel. It's strong. If you buy it in the 4140 high tensile, works great. A linear bearing that slides, a plumb bob, and you can take that to the center. So that is no good without the datum which is actually through the swing arm pivot. If you come down here, you can see my assemblies on the table. That one over there, and that one over there. And you can see that I've actually got another bit of that precision ground bar that I make up as tooling for my jig. So that's connected through these cone pieces that are held inside of bearings, like this one on the end there, and then I've got bars that tie it all together. So this is threaded inside as well. It's a 10mm thread to the inside of this. I do it up there, that pushes in there, and that allows me to move the bike left and right while being parallel to the center line of the table. And you can see that. You can see where the mark is on the bar and the mark is on the cases. In there is a center line. It's hard, like I said, a lot of this is very hard to show on a video, but you can get an idea. And by shifting the threads this way and that way, we can use the table's datum above and below to check the alignment of the frame. Now, this is where it really got a bit hairy because it was visibly out. Factory frames are out more than anyone would ever dare to think. It's not until you start to actually take measurements you realize how far they're out. The tolerances are actually pretty big, and you ride around and you would not know. But this looked ugly. So the first step that I did was I installed the assembly onto the table, those things there, and yes, those hand wheels are Z9 um, brake hubs, aluminium carriers. Um, yeah, I know, I'm a geek. Shoot me. Anyway, so the frame went in. I found a theoretical center, a place to start, and off we went. And if you come down here, all the way back down to the front, oh, here we go. This pointer mark was 35mm that way and 65mm back this way. So when you look at it, down here like that, that means that was the angle. Now, I got some photos that I'm going to have a real shit of a time trying to insert in this because I've never tried it as a free run single take on the YouTube app, but I'll give it a crack. But you can see it's taken me a while to develop the tooling, and I've never really had a fixed way about how I can go about these things. And I've drawn on a lot of different methods around the world. Some of my work in my early career in line boiling, some of the people that do this style of work. But the first pull was actually this upright that holds that top bit there, allows that to go through. That's why these move. All of this is modular. It was actually out here all the way to the front of the table, and there was a pull ram on a big plate. Oh, this big plate up here. This plate here. Now, I'd like to tell you that that's 20mm. It's actually off a old die on a machine. It's got water galleries. It was cooling water was put on this, and it was part of a tooling on a vintage manufacturing machine, which is my background with my father, working in mechanical services in factories. It was in the scrap bin one day, and it was a really lovely piece of steel. So I grabbed it. That's the same bits that go in between over here. I've got a stack of them, all little bits and pieces like that. Like you go to the box, you grab the one with the thread, you grab whichever one. Are you pulling? Are you pushing? There's a lot of different things, and basically, I ended up, we couldn't we couldn't get this metal to relax enough after their repair that they'd done in America, because what I didn't mention, the damage was originally that way. That final position that was actually on that side was, in fact, after the repair was done in America. And we knew it was a repair done in America because I've straightened this out. They get a wobble. Right? When you heat up to bend something, it doesn't just bend in a nice, smooth way. If you do more than one bend, so the first bend when it's broken, it's bent. And then you heat it to repair it, that's two bends. So you get a wave. Now this side came out absolutely lovely. A little bit of heat, a little bit of a tap, pressure in the right places. We didn't have this one in. We had a piece welded through here and we had pushed from the top. So at the moment, I'm doing a different job, so I'm pushing from the bottom. I'm using these ones now to hold the headstock in isolation, because as I pulled it forward, the thing really just pulled it herself straight. I have dial indicators on the back of the frame, so as you're moving it, I can keep track if the frame is doing this by pushing, because there's a lot of force involved in moving these around. So I preload by other jigs like this, all homemade. Just over time, you figure out what you want, and it's all just recycled metals, basic stuff, and a bit of time. And I've come up with this. All home machined, everything's been done in the workshop. Now, this motor, when they've done the repair, they've overcooked it a little bit as well. It's a little bit that way there, only by a touch. It's still in this plane, correct to the swing arm. So I'm just putting a little bit of force because in the accident, this is where it gets tricky. So the accident pushed this down, two down tubes, which is connected to this motor. The accident actually hit it down here. And I don't know how much you follow, but in some of my other media, these three fins are actually weld. Oh, sorry. That one, and that one, where my fingers just touch. I filled from there to there, there to there, there to there with weld, and then I sit down with a hand file. And given enough time and a bit of patience, you get up with that. Now, this, let's come back over the top here. This engine mount and the diagonal mount over there, I've repaired. They were smashed out of it. So that tells me, boom, there. First impact at the front of the bike, second impact there, and it collapsed everything that way, and this part of the frame dropped. Now, even though I have successfully got the alignment right, and I should have been happy at that, I wasn't happy that when you look down through here, I can't see it. I've already started to rectify it, but this bar through there was down this side by a long way. So even though the top and the bottom are with the center line, the frame itself was twisted there. Now it comes back to level through here. The twist is actually through when they've heated here, and this is the second side. Now, do you see what I mean about the wave? I have a wave there, and I have a wave there. One is the accident, and one is their repair. Now, the other side came out beautiful. This one, I'm not going to be able to do much more. Now, I'm probably going to have to wear it on this. There's two odd size tubes on this 1972 GT 750 frame. I don't know if I mentioned it. I probably did in the beginning. Anyway, this is a odd size as well. I've got chrome moly because up here it was deformed. They had heated it up and jacked in places, and I can run my finger over it and there's an egg there and it goes back in. Metal can only take so much. This is a off-the-shelf size. So here I'll splice it and I'll put a new piece of chromoly tubing up into the headstock and I'll replace that piece altogether and I'll put all the strength back in it. Now, if I had have been able to get this tube easier and I didn't already have the complication of these tubes. So in the repair, if you can see where my finger is, by rubbing a file over it, you can start to see that's where they've clamped on something to try to move the frame around. And it's been clamped on there so hard, it's pushed the tube out of shape. Now that actually comes down in around here. And again, can't particularly show it, but it's just you can feel it like all the way down. They've had a huge flame on it, and it was at that point I needed to take it out. It's an odd size. I can go one size up in tube with thick wall, and I'll machine the outside back to this size, and I'll replace them. I didn't want to, but all down here, it just needs to come out anyway. So I already had to trim that out. This has a noticeable, it's been bent 3-4 times now. And on the other side, you can see it better. Comes up, comes down. More of these. They're just all over it. And if the bloke's building a nice bike, and most people that are building this sort of first, earlier bevels, and I know that I now know that the 71s are the sandcast ones that are really, really collectible. These are the 72s. They're still really collectible. So by pushing the headstock back into position, by pulling it forward, we now had the choice of everything was in the right position with the motor just to be one way. Those tubes could be fixed up. Oh, we'll come back around here. They could be fixed up when I cut it out. But the thing that would have to stay is that tube. And again, there's just too much stuff in here now, and that's why I should have done the video earlier, but it is what it is. But it's sitting down there, and it's right in here. It's right in all this strengthy part. There's this tube, and this tube welded in 3 places together. It's really, you normally wouldn't bother. But it was worth trying, and it was one that was sort of guilt-free. I can't make it any worse than what it was. And this system's been developed that I could get to this far. I mean, it's probably not feasible on a lot of times. It's just not economical or feasible. It really is a rare thing, but it has been a challenge, but it's been rewarding. I've really started to see the full fruition of what I had in my mind when I started building this, and that was about 6 years ago. I started to actually build it. I had the idea probably 10 years ago, and that was for the table. And these things at the back which are actually a blatant rip-off of Auto Magic in Japan. Cool dude. Went and met him. Lasers. Anyway, the table is what I started with. And I'm still a couple of bits of tooling short. I want another couple of uprights. I've still got another 480 8mm holes to drill and tap. But I'm starting to really see dividends on the work. I use a combination of screw jacks that I can just use to push and pull simple things like scissor jacks. I am yet to find anything as versatile and exert as much force efficiently as what I'm doing there. A scissors jack onto my upright and a scissors jack on that side. I brought them, they go on the outside. They're built for fancy rams, like this one in here. That if I need to, I can use the mechanical force to give a hand to they're just, using them as screw jacks. But between pulling, pushing, and moving it just to set up, I've made a difference. I'm very confident that I should be able to make some real improvements on this and really make it worthwhile the extra effort. Um, it is as full send as you probably could get, but then again, these things are starting to be worth it. There were only so many of them, and there's only so many of them left. Um, the days of them being 10 deep in places is this is a 1970s bike that's 20, that's just under 50 years old, and it's cool to be able to bring them back to life. Anyway, I need to get up in 5 hours to go to work for a couple of days on my weekend, but that's the update.